practical education. I'm Lakshmi Sampath Goyal, and I serve the Center for Civil Society as the Chief Executive. Special welcome to our keynote speaker, Ms. Catherine Juncan, and Honorable Minister of Education for Sri Lanka, Shri Sushil Premajayantha, who is gracing the all-star panel discussion today. Today's discussion is a continuation of the Restart webinars, which are aimed at bringing together practitioners and beneficiaries from across South Asia. This web series is a result of partnership with FNF South Asia, who have been a cherished partner of CCS for over 2 decades now. Sincere gratitude to Dr. Klein and Mrs. Nupur Hasija and her entire team for their continuous boost and support to help fuel ideas. Given that both FNF and CCS firmly believe that access to quality education forms the bedrock for personal development, with FNF's support, CCS has been working towards this mission through various programs, such as instituting and running the Researching Reality Internship Program, which aims to equip young scholars with practical education in public policy through fieldwork-based internships. The Restart web series initiative provides an excellent canvas for discussion on a range of issues that are looming large, exacerbated no doubt by the pandemic. In our webinars, we have brought together policymakers, practitioners, and technology experts to deliberate on the challenges, opportunities, and the impact of pandemic on school education in South Asia. Today's webinar is going to focus on life skills education and how education should enable productive participation of individuals in society. Now, this topic has a deep connection with the quality of education in terms of imparting life skills and focus on content that is relevant to everyday life. The existing system of school education in South Asia, I'm sure all of you will agree, is predominantly academic-centric and perhaps not adequately focused on nurturing good citizens. Through this webinar, we aim to bring together different stakeholders from the South Asian subcontinent to discuss aspects of practical education that could lead to human flourishing at an individual level and a thriving economy as nations. Before we commence the panel discussion, it is my pleasure to welcome the keynote speaker of the day, Ms. Catherine Juncan. Ms. Juncan is the CEO of NSST, the Nepal Secretariat of Skills and Training, and has over 15 years of experience as a manager, leader, and founder with strong intercultural background. Before she joined NSST, Ms. Juncan was the director of Githe Zentrum in Kathmandu and has contributed to the success of the organizations in Europe and Asia in retail, social entrepreneurship, education sector, and economic women empowerment. Ms. Juncan is passionate about co-creating a beautiful future in which equal access to opportunities for everyone exists. Over to you, Ms. Catherine Juncan, for delivering the keynote address.
Thanks a lot for the introduction and a warm welcome to everyone joining this event today. We are all aware about the huge gap between the skills which young people need and the skills which young people have after leaving school. This huge mismatch, which affects then the employability of the young people, affects the growth of the companies because they can't hire people with the right skill sets, which affects the economic growth of countries. I really don't want to focus today on the issues and problems behind. I believe in finding solutions, and I want to talk about one of the many ways which can be part of the solution to this challenge which we are facing. So I invite you to all travel with me virtually at the moment to Germany and have a look at the vocational education system existing in Germany, which is well known as apprenticeship programs. So the vocational education system in Germany has been a big, important part of the economic growth and development of Germany. On the one hand, it helps companies to get skilled employees And on the other hand, it helps young people to get trained in a practical and in a theoretical way at the same time, which makes them highly attractive for the labor market afterwards. So Germany is a perfect example which has shown if the different stakeholders come together and work in their area of core competences together, that something great can be created. So in Germany, the government is responsible for the legal framework and to get the resources for the vocational training schools. The chambers, they are responsible for the curriculums and to control that the curriculums are applied in the vocational training schools as well as in the companies. And the third parties are the companies in the vocational training centers, which then execute the trainings for the young people. So let's talk numbers now. So 55% of all school leaving students in Germany start an apprenticeship. 20% of all companies offer such training periods in their companies. The trainings last normally between 2.5 and 3.5 years. Currently, there are more places available than actually are there young people in Germany. The young people can choose between over 350 different kind of training programs. Yeah, they will spend 70% of their time in the company with in-company trainers, which train them on real-life practical topics and issues, and they will spend 30% of their time in the vocational training schools. The huge advantage of the system is that young people get from the first day trained on real-life problems, on real working situations, and they get paid for this from the first moment onwards. So it's a earn while you learn system. These trainees finish their education with valuable skills, which they have tested already in actual business operations, and they are highly valuable for companies. Around 75% of the young people doing the trainings after their training period directly start with great full-time positions in the companies. From the 25% which is existing, a lot of them go afterwards into university. So this whole system is a win-win situation for everyone. So as you've heard, I'm based in Nepal since many years. It's now through 9 years. And I believe talent is universal, but the access to opportunity is not. So we at NSST, we want to create fair and safe opportunities for young Nepalese to get the right skills for a bright future and find good jobs for them. So how are we doing that? And how does the German system actually play a role in this? So a lot of young people nowadays leave the country and migrate to other places where they often work in unskilled jobs under not fair and safe working conditions. So what we do, we work in different fields. The first field is that we actually help young Nepalese to find apprenticeship opportunities, so trainings in Germany. How are we doing this? So we train the young people for about a year, and we start with job orientation trainings like, what do you want to do in life? What are your skills? What are the matching professions? And they can choose in between the 350 different occupations which are existing in Germany for the apprenticeship programs. We then train them actually in a lot of soft skill trainings up to preparing them for the vocational training schools in Germany. And we match them afterwards with company, and we mentor them the whole 3 to 3.5 years in Germany when they're doing the apprenticeship program. You might remember that I have said at the beginning that people in the apprenticeship program or the vocational training, they earn from the first day. This is really important. And we as NSST, we don't charge the young people anything for our services. the companies pay us for this. So this program gives access to everyone, no matter what your final situation is, what your family background is. And we are doing this on and offline. So really to leave no one behind. We're not only based in Kathmandu, we can go out to the whole country with this system. So this is one part we are doing. The other part is that we are actually working in Nepal on improving the existing vocational training system and creating an ecosystem for dual vocational training. Therefore, it's important to know we are a social enterprise which is 100% funded from Nepali business houses which believe that investing in the education and skilling of young people helps the young people, helps their company, and helps the society at the end of the day. So currently we are working on getting trainers for the companies, which can then receive people from the vocational training schools to actually get them real life applications and real life experience in the work environment. As soon as this is established, so if we have a few trainers, we will start as well doing what we're already doing for the people leaving these countries, so the job orientation programs, the soft skill trainings, and the mentoring for people who want to do vocational training in Nepal. So to improve the ecosystem of the vocational training in Nepal, nowadays we're bringing in a lot of experts from abroad, like many others do as well. And there comes our program and approach again into action. So we have a long-term approach. We are estimating that 50% of the young people going nowadays for apprenticeship for fair and safe work condition in Germany will become change agents. What does this mean? It doesn't mean that 50% are coming back, but they can become mentors, consultants, come back for short periods actually to Nepal to help improve the vocational training system, to help getting young people's better skills in Nepal. And we are creating actually a returnee hub, which means for people who have done then vocational training abroad, who want to come back and at one point want to start a company, want to become trainers in the sectors in Nepal. So this is our contribution and our idea how we can change the situation, how to make it possible that young people get better skills and to create a long-term better running system. If you have any questions, please feel free afterwards to reach out to me, and I'm really happy to hand over now to our moderator and curious about the panel discussion afterwards. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Ms. Junkin. Thank you for your insight on how the different stakeholders can come together and to fight these issues. So my name is Tenzin Pelger. I'm from Frederick Naumann Foundation, and today I'm here to introduce the moderator of the session. The moderator of our session is Mr. Roshan Gandhi. Mr. Roshan Gandhi is the strategy advisor and former CEO of City Montessori School in Lucknow. The school offers education from preschool up to K-12 levels. Mr. Roshan Gandhi has led transformation across City Montessori Schools, the world's largest city school with 57,000 students. A graduate from University of Oxford with an MBA in Educational Leadership from University of College London, UCL, he has also worked in and continues to consult for various education technology companies. Roshan is a frequent speaker at educational conferences in India and internationally, and often publishes on educational topics. Roshan is about to start a new role as head of the foundation in Africa, providing education and healthcare to hundreds of communities across Southern Democratic Republic of Congo. Congratulations, Mr. Roshan Gandhi. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tenzin. Thank you to CCS and FNF for having me and for organizing this webinar on this very important topic, which we're all here to hear about today. I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion with our very eminent and knowledgeable panelists that we have with us today. And it's my pleasure to begin the proceedings by introducing the panelists. So I'd like to just briefly read out each of their biographies. We have with us the Honorable Minister of Education of Sri Lanka, Mr. Sushil Premajayanta, who had his primary and secondary education at St. John's College, New Garuda in Sri Lanka, and in 1982 completed his Bachelor of Law degree at the University of Colombo and passed out as an attorney at law in 1985. He's also completed a Master of Public Administration at the Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Jayawara, Dhanapura. Mr. Premajayanta commenced his political career with his appointment as Deputy Chairman of Kotte Urban Council in 1991, and in 93 was elected as Provincial Council member of the Western Province and was the Minister of Agriculture of the local government there. In 95 was appointed as the Chief Minister of the Western Province, and subsequently the electorate reposed their faith in him by re-electing him, and he became the Chief Minister of the Western Provincial Council between 1995 and 2000. He was elected to the National Parliament in the year 2000 and has continued to be in Parliament since then. And during this period, he's held numerous cabinet portfolios, including education, higher education, power and energy, petroleum industries, environment and renewable energy, and is presently Minister of Science, Technology and Research. Honourable Minister, thank you so much for sparing your time and being with us today. Looking forward to hearing from you. Next, we have Ms. Akriti Parashar. Akriti is an aspiring public policy enthusiast and writer. Recent graduate of Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. She has led various social entrepreneurial teams and has worked as a media consultant for the Delhi government. Akriti has a keen interest in education policy and research, and some of her published articles include India's Daughter, a commentary on women's safety in India, mental health, an article for Discordian magazine, and a contributing writer for her campus media. Welcome, Akriti. Thank you so much for sparing your time and joining us today. Next, we have Mr. Hemant Jayavira. Mr. Hemant is a recipient of the prestigious Eisenhower Fellowship for the year 2021. He obtained his bachelor's in electronics and telecommunication engineering and an MBA in management of technology from the University of Moratuva, and has worked over a decade in Dialogue Axiata and the Axiata Group, specializing in new product and innovation management. He has product innovation consulting experience in Malaysia, Bangladesh, and Cambodia. As the Senior Fellow in Innovation and Entrepreneurship of University of Moratuva, he started Mora Ventures, which is a startup incubator based at the university. And during his tenure as the head of Mora Ventures, it has launched 30 startups within the first 2 years. One of those startups reached $1 million valuation. Hemant was formerly the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Slintech, a pioneer nanotech and advanced research facility in Sri Lanka. He's also a serial innovator and entrepreneur. Founded Gendo, a med tech startup, which has patents in US and Japan for a non-invasive medical device to identify cardiovascular diseases. He also founded Through, a green tech initiative, which is focused on utilizing technology for accelerating reforestation. He's a director of Effective Solutions Private Limited, an Internet of Things company, which has offices in Niigata, Japan, and Cambridge, United Kingdom, and is also a director of Vibhava Solutions, a company working on solutions related to plastic recycling and upcycling. He was also director of Ceylon Graphene Technologies, which is the first graphene and advanced material company in Sri Lanka, which was established in June 2018. And there he also co-founded Venture Frontier Lanka, an integrated startup platform focused on the development of complete startup life cycle. He's a board member at Trace and was a council member of Computer Society of Sri Lanka from 2019 to 21, and is a seasoned trainer on design thinking and rapid prototyping for corporates. Extensive list of accomplishments there. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Hemant. Looking forward to hearing you. And last but not the least, we have with us Suresh Gautam, who is the head of the Department of Development Education at Kathmandu University in Nepal. His primary research interests are in the field of education, qualitative research, development, and youth and adult education in urban and rural settings, contributing to social transformation. He's worked closely with the UNESCO chair team at the University of East Anglia, UK, including through a fellowship funded by the British Association of International and Comparative Education, to develop publications based on his research on adult and youth literacy and learning. His recent publication for UNESCO, Futures of Education and UNESCO Indigenous Language Decade 2020 to 30 highlight the importance of education to combat the global problems such as climate change, global warming, and the pandemic, like with preserving and promoting the local wisdom heritage, which are more resilient and sustainable futures. He's teaching research, sociology of education and development to graduate and postgraduate students under the transformative epistemic base. He's currently researching urban education in the global south. Mr. Suresh, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've introduced the panelists, and without further ado, we'd like to get on with hearing your views on this topic. And I'll start by a few questions to each of you regarding, to help the audience get an overview of the current situation in South Asia with relation to skills. Akriti, if I could start with you on a very practical question. As a recent graduate yourself, to what extent do you feel your school and university education prepared you with the skills that you need to thrive in the professional world that you're now in? And how could it have been done better?
Thank you, Roshan. First of all, good evening and good afternoon to everyone present here. I'm honored to be in the presence of such distinguished personalities. To answer your question, Roshan, I think, so as somebody who's based in Delhi, India, and as someone who has grown up prioritizing being a studious kid and excessively focusing on academics, and in school, at least for the most part, sidelining extracurricular activities, I realized much later, or at least in my university years, that a lot of the education material that was taught to us in school and even in university was highly textbook centric. And when you enter the real world, and having spoken to a lot of my co-workers, having spoken to a lot of recent graduates and school students, I realized that a lot of us were of the same view that when we entered the sort of the job market or wanted to innovate after graduating, we felt somewhat under-equipped when we look at life skills or real life sort of achievements and things that you need to equip yourself with when you enter the real world. I might give an example for the board that I was studying in. I was like, in my sort of board, we had these very distinguished channels that either take science or commerce or humanities. And so I chose science, and I had the option of choosing the computer language along with it. And in that, we were given the option of Python, which was then an up and coming language. And we know today it's extensively used in web programming. And we had the option of C++, which had been seemingly dated. However, we had been informed that because of how the evaluation of the exam would be taking place, it was likely that we would score less marks in Python because the person evaluating our papers might not be equipped with Python. So instead of opting for the skills that Python might give us, it was suggested to us that we opt for the marks that we might get with C++. And a lot of us, with the end goal of marks and not skills being our goal, a lot of us felt compelled to go for the marks over the skills. And now when I look back in hindsight, I would have preferred to study Python in the 2 years in school, and I might have been better equipped today. And that's just one example that's come to my head. But there are various such examples, and I just feel like these are life skills that must be taught to us in school and college so that we're better prepared when we enter the job market. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So in short, basically, you feel that the life skills were missing from your education at school before you entered college. Could you just elaborate on at college itself and in your higher education as well? What was your experience with skills?
I think a lot of us would have to go out of our way, and a lot of the skills that I do sort of think I possess, I owe them to my extracurriculars more than my academics, because I feel like the textbook or the syllabus that was taught to us is not as practically applicable in today's world as some of the life skills that I might have learned in operating a project as a side, like gig that I might have taken up during my school and college years. So those are things that sort of inculcated a spirit of sort of giving and social impact in me more than the subjects that I had studied during my academic years, both in school and university.
Right. So if you wanted to learn skills, you have to do it yourself, basically.
Extra, yeah, go the extra mile, essentially, yes.
Mr. Heyman, how does that correlate with your experience as an entrepreneur hiring people? What sorts of skills gaps do you tend to encounter while you're hiring people?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me for this session. And hi, everyone, especially people coming from all over the world, I think, especially South Asia. So I think I will echo what Akriti mentioned as well. What we see is that, our education system, I mean, Sri Lankan education system is coming from maybe based out of 2000 years model, and also it has developed, and I'm a product of 100% Sri Lankan education system. I'm very proud about that. But then what we see is that it has to be modernized really rapidly based on what is happening. For example, I'll tell you a few things which we have seen, even the current system. If you look at the school system, not only Sri Lanka, South Asia, maybe even over the world, it's a factory education system that we have. We kind of have the same system as a factory. You have a bell interval period, then you go to batches, students go out of batches. So these are all you have a conformance test at the end of the day. So it's a factory setup where it's developed for products and industrialization. So I think that's where we see there's a big gap nowadays, because the world is changing so fast and the job requirements are changing, skill requirements are changing. So we should look at more collaborative approach where there's nothing like teacher-centric education. Now it's 1,000 years of time, maybe even times of, say, University Bologna in the 14th century. It has come, the teacher is the knowledge hub. So everybody has to listen to what the teacher says. And there's no other way of getting the knowledge. But now it's the developed, to a next level. You can get the knowledge, dissemination can happen from anywhere. It's just, collaboration is the way of learning. So it's the knowledge can be disseminated from anywhere. It could be internet, it could be YouTube, it could be books, it could be your peer learning. So I think what we need to change is that collaborative education methodology. It's never revolved around just around the teacher. So I think in that case we see that in the job market, what we lack is the soft skills of the people. So for example, maybe you will see fantastic person who knows about maybe IT technology, but then again when we put into real work environment, we see there's a maybe 6 months to 7 months period is required for them to really get adjusted to that environment. And also it's very competitive environment, and to get adjusted to that environment, a lot of people fail. If you can't get in there within the first couple of weeks, you will see that there's you will see it's a part of the problem of the education system. But I think what we need to change is that the system itself, which is I won't blame the current system, but it has to be evolved in the future really rapidly, not only Sri Lanka but all over the world, especially South Asia. I hope I answered your question. Maybe we can.
No, absolutely. So it sounds like in general you're missing the skills that you're looking for when you're trying to hire people. Suresh, I wanted to ask your view on a slightly philosophical angle to this overall question of skills, because there is a view which is particularly common in the West. It's the basis of what's some of the best education systems like Oxford and Cambridge follow, that the true education is not supposed to be about knowledge and specific workplace skills, but it's supposed to be about developing a sort of creative, analytical mind that can apply itself in any setting. What's your view on this? Would you say that this approach is relevant in the context of South Asian economies?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for inviting me in the session. Yeah, actually, it's my privilege to talk about our common stories. Like Heminda shared something else about the story of Sri Lanka, and Akriti shared the stories of India. And almost the similar stories we can find in Nepal. While trying to analyze the reason behind that particular story, I like the metaphor Heminda used, the metaphor of factory, right? How that factory was created in our education system. It was the pertinent questions to unpack and rethink about the forthcoming generation with the new requirement of these skills, not only for the job market, but for sustaining democracy in Nepal and South Asia. That's also a kind of threat for us. So back in the head, I had a kind of, Macaulay minutes that guided the whole educational system in India and Nepal. Especially, I'm a little familiar with India and Nepal than Sri Lanka. The root, is tied with the Macaulay minutes, and that minutes tell something else, to create, Indian to make Indians as white, right? So that intention has been perpetuating based on focusing on the cognitive aspects, developing the cognitive aspects. Could be kind of cognitive development of the person who could serve as the master or the owner or something else like that, for making job seeker. That legacy of education has been continued. So it offers very less space to be creative and critical. Like, how can we be critical to pose questions to the factory system? It's an individual, it's a society, it's a market itself in the neoliberal era, because everything else is guided by market. So what else, and how can we move ahead, was the fundamental, exactly, political questions. It's not the question only for the educator and teacher, or even the entrepreneur or the business people. It's the fundamental questions set on the state mechanism. And you rightly pointed out two major things: to be creative and to be critical. It's very easy to point others for the sake of being critical, rather than evaluating ourselves, our assumptions, our value system. And then we try to rectify these value system based on the social change and the community change, or the community development. So the main problem lies on the purpose of education. Are we producing puppets, or are we producing human? That's the fundamental questions we need to ask behind the reason of exploring the values of skills in contemporary time. While reflecting to the situation of Nepal, we have two kind of education. One is general education, and next one is technical educations. You can find out the statistical report, right, of educational indicator in Nepal. Very not so pleasing indicators we can find in Nepalese context. Some initiation, despite these things, some initiations have been taken by state and non-state agencies to flourish, to bridge the gap between the students, to bridge the transition between schools and workplace. However, it's not enough, as Anken already described a kind of glimpses of Nepalese work-based learning or apprenticeship system in the very short-term kind of courses. However, in the ministry level, they are doing a lot to develop a kind of apprenticeship and work-based learning. But there are several questions and several ways to put our disclaiming statement in the initiation. However, these are few initiations which are not much appealing and convincing to fulfill the gap of the current youth, which can be shown by the high flow of unskilled migration to Middle East countries from Nepal. And the very simple metaphor of making critical and creative is a kind of synthesizing our hands, which might be busy on skills, our heads, which can be engaging on ideas, and our heart, right? If we have a kind of good configuration of hands, heart, and head, then that education might be helpful to make students, critical and creative, right? We have certain, even in a general education, like Akirti already explained, I just would like to add something else. Like, we have science, we have mathematics in terms of subjects, which wants to cultivate the very strong reasoning capacity of the student that can be applied to solve the everyday life problems. But no, there is no way out. Sine theta by cos theta equal to tan theta, finish. It's not related to everyday life, problem solving mechanism. We face a lot of problems in that modern time. So lastly, I would like to conclude to address especially skill gaps, skill mismatch, school work transition. We need to have a kind of strong synthesis between head, hands, and heart. That's a need of our South Asian context to rethink on education.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. I like the distinction between, are we training people for a particular type of work, or are we trying to develop humans? That's a really important distinction that we all need to keep in mind. Honorable Minister, I'm assuming that your country, maintains data on issues around this. So I'm wondering if you could shed some light on the evidence from your country around the readiness of young people with the skills that they need for work. And also if you could tell us about what you can do to improve the situation.
So thank you very much, Suresh, for allocate this few minutes for me to express my views as a policymaker. So I take this opportunity to thank Frederick Newman Foundation Regional Office and the Civil Society Center for Civil Society in Delhi for organizing Gap Between Schools and Practical Education webinar today. So education is about providing understanding, application, analysis, evaluation, and creation. These are the outcomes expected from the process of education, according to Benjamin Bloom, the well-known American educationists. So I start from that quotation, the factors contributing to the gap. The main topic is the gap between schools and the practical education. I agree with the Sri Lankan engineer, passed out from University of Moratuwa, that is a leading university in the field of engineering studies, and all other panelists with their own experience. They express their views about this topic. So actually our school curriculum often provide only knowledge for memorizing rather than understanding. So I think all our other three panelists accepted this fact. So it does not provide for application through skills development. So then the number two, the second factor is the skills and competencies of our teachers in schools. So we have to train our teachers and change their mindset. And the number three, assessments are focused on examinations. In Sri Lanka, I think Aminda will elaborate on it, right? So both myself and Aminda, so we are products of the evaluation based on examinations. But I think in the case of Aminda, it's a little different than me. But even as a attorney, so I had to practice in courts. So then only I started my career as an attorney, then only I practice. Otherwise, of course, I went through all these, past records of cases and all that, case studies and all that, theories, everything. So fortunately, as a professional, of course, then I improve my skills on my profession. So now in this scenario, the Sri Lankan has, said, of course, for many decades. So we inherited the present system of education in our country from Britishers, where you find even in Britain, you don't find it now. But unfortunately, we have not reformed our education system for last over 7 decades. So if you compare the education systems in other countries, most of the developed countries, whether those countries in West or in East, so they have changed a lot with the technology. So now, basically the education, there are 3 pillars, knowledge, attitudes, and skills. In Sri Lanka, of course, our students at any level, GCO level or A levels or graduates, they are very rich in knowledge. But the issue is skills. Now, after having deliberations for over 2 years, from 2018, 19, and 20, the set of education is, together with academics, over 200 in Sri Lanka. So they prepared education reform framework, the policy framework. So it's in 3 sectors. And the first sector is from grade 1 to 13, GC advanced level, the general education reforms. And then the next sector is skills development and technical education. The third sector is higher education, university education. So normally in Sri Lanka, from grade 1 to first degree, education is free. It means that no tuition fees charged, even for the first degree. So then apart from that, uniform materials for school children from grade 1 to 13 are given free of charges. And all the textbooks given free of charges. And the transportation subsidized. So with all that, of course, we managed to improve our literacy from 1940s to present by 2 folds, that is 46 to 92, 93, like that. Now the issue is the access to IT literacy. That is also, considering last 10 years, of course, we have improved a lot. Now we are in the process of reform the education in these 3 sectors. So that responsibility has been given to me by the present president. Now under the Ministry of Education now at present, so it's in under one umbrella, the general education, technical and vocational education, and the higher education, and science and technology and research. So fortunately, all these institutions are under the same ministry, but we have 3 state ministers and 3 sectors separately, but we are working together because we need to have a holistic approach to achieve our targets by 2030, as said by United Nations, that 17 SDG goals, number 4, quality and equal education for all. So now we are in the process of that. So we are starting the pilot project next year, 2023. And then from 2024 to 2029, within 5 years, we want to complete the cycle. From grade 1 to 5, 6 to 9, 10 to 13, and at the same time, parallelly, the technical and vocational education and the higher education. So from grade 6, there's a guidance for students. So they have to sit for a common examination to grade 9, science, maths, language, and the environment. So based on the assessment, the student and the parents, they will be explained by the teacher and the people who guide them, and they have to select their path, whether they go to technical education or they continue their higher education at O levels, A levels, then the university education. So at the moment, in these 3 sectors, in the technical education and vocational training, so we have many institutions. We have collaboration with private sector. So some private sector companies, whether it's engineering or some other sectors, so they engage with our NITA, VTA, and other institutions. So they design the courses, then they update the courses, having discussions with the industry. That is one of the features that I like it. So then here, of course, we have in Sri Lanka, we have organized the website. So at the moment, we have 1,300 Sri Lankan academics who are serving in other parts of the world, in USA, UK, New Zealand, Australia, many countries. So they are in our website, and then set of university academics, they are working with them. That is to update the courses at the university level. And the vocation training and technical education also, now we are reforming the entire sector. So I listened to the speech made by Catherine, I believe, with her experience in Germany. So I have visited some technical colleges in Frankfurt about 4 or 5 years ago when I was the Minister of Science and Technology. Of course, they are.
Sir, forgive my interruption. I'll come to you later with a question where I would love to.
So at the moment,
I would love to hear your views in detail on technical and vocational education.
Of course, I outline the present system and what we are going to do within next 5 to 6 years.
Great. Thank you so much for outlining that. And yes, we'll come back for more on what you were just touching upon in terms of technical and vocational education. Before I proceed with further questions, just a reminder to the audience, there will be an audience question and answer section at the end. So audience, throughout the panel, as you have questions that come to mind, please write them in the question and answer box if you're on Zoom, or comment them if you're following on the social media live streams. And we'll try to address as many of your questions as time permits. I'm going to continue with further questions now on the need for different kinds of skills. I'd like to start by coming back to you, Heyman. You briefly touched upon this in your last answer, but if you could elaborate specifically on the question of what are the types of skills that you're looking for when you're hiring people?
I think this was nicely elaborated, I think, in the World Economic Forum as well, some time back. What are the skills that the world is looking for any job? I think gone are the days that we are looking at the repetitive kind of things. For example, those are the things that might end up as obsolete very, very soon. So I think some of the skills like the deep analytical skills, then looking at critical thinking, then also complex problem solving. It's not just problem solving, but complex problem solving. And a lot of these skills actually has to happen or to learn with peer learning. So I think that's where the real problem that we see. And maybe they are really good at the knowledge, the mathematical equations and all that. I mean, I'm more work with the engineers who are coming from more mathematical background, but then a lot of problems that they have to solve at the working desk is more, you have to have a collaborative approach. So that is what is missing. And so we see that, obviously we had more issues due to COVID time because a lot of work was done, virtually. So then again, it's a collaboration was even more difficult. But then again, so what we see is this. I think if you look at coming from the Maria Montessori method, it's if you can emphasize that, and if you can bring that method itself to the next level, I think that would have solved a lot of issues. So we expect the people to work on a problem and come up with as a team to come up with a solution. So but then in the education system that we went through, we didn't see that. I mean, it's a very highly competitive, individualistic model that we went through in Sri Lanka and maybe even South Asia as well. You have competitive exams, so it's copying is known as a crime. But if you come to the work, I mean, industry, copying is now is known as a collaboration, right? I mean, you collaborate and you share things what you know, and you I mean, there's another term called reverse engineering. So that is how Japanese technology developed through the knowledge came from UK. Then how South Korea developed is from actually copying from Japan. I mean, it's a reverse engineering that we call. So I think this models has to happen. I mean, even in the education system, we need that collaborative approach. I think that's. I think our minister also mentioned. I think one of the harder problem is how to teach that for the educators first, and then bring the teachers up to that standard. And so that you can't do it overnight. So it's something that will take a long time. So I think what I see, because I'm coming from more entrepreneurial background, and to become an entrepreneur, you need to be like a generalist. So you need to know a lot of things. For example, if my background is electronics engineering, but then I learned my marketing skills working for various organizations. So I had that general approach. But then this general approach helps even if you're not an entrepreneur. So if that entrepreneurial skill set is required even when you're working in a normal environment. So I think that's skills is the real gap that we see. So I think some of the speakers touched upon that. I think the real way of educating is, I think first we have to teach the students to learn how to learn. So learning is what the education system should first teach students. There's an art in learning. And then learning is a life skill. I mean, it's not about you learn from the age from 6 to maybe 13, and then you get a degree and then you finish it off. Learning is a life skill. You learn till you die. So I think you have to first learn how to learn. And that is something that the schools should start teaching. And then it's about how you learn as a group. And then I think that is, if you can bring that into the education system, which is even in Sri Lanka, we are trying really hard now. I think that the minister might explain a lot of initiatives already taken. So but then it takes time. So I think that's where we might need some help from the organization like Frederick Norman and all the other skills, the experts from how we can get there faster is, I think that's where the trick is. So I think we see that that is something that we need to really look at if we want to upskill our employees and our workforce.
Great, thank you very much. Suresh, are there differences in what vocational or skills education should look like in a rural setting compared with an urban one? For example, should vocational education in an agricultural area focus more on farming skills? Are these urban or corporate skills actually useful to all people?
Yeah, very good question, and interesting questions too. I work in university where we offer a program in Masters in Technical Education and Vocational Training. And that's our main focus, where we try to differentiate, the skill course or vocational training courses based on the needs. So fundamental question moves around kind of changing typology or disparity between urban and rural, or linkage between urban rural linkage or urban rural disparities. So while developing a kind of short-term training courses, we need to identify needs of the local people. So that's the first stage, to offer certain kind of training or to develop a kind of skills of particular group of people. If it starts with the bottom-up approach, locating to the particular community, particular group of people, then that might be helpful. Otherwise, the number of so-called skilled youth or people would be increased, but these youth might not be able to serve in the contemporary job market, as the nature of jobs at present are very flexible because of technology, because of remote job access kind of things. So many changes, taking place in a job market. So in that particular aspect, we need to identify, and one of the major important aspect is, Nepal is a landlocked country, and it's an agricultural country also. However, that on-skill migration made lands abandoned, hectares and 1,000 hectares of land abandoned in the remote areas of Nepal. So it means that the particular skills not reach to the reachable. The first pertinent question comes here: what kind of skills do we want to give to whom? Right, that's the fundamental questions in the very initial stage. But later on, that question extends its volume. For example, like skills for income, right? If someone upskilled would be able to have a better income and better quality of life, right? That's fine. That's fine from the perspective of human capital perspective. They became able to do something else to earn, to maintain their life. But can we connect it with the deep down transformation of the social system? That's another question. However, focusing on your question, of course, we need different kind of skills to different group of people, different community of people. They have unique one traditional value system where they can upscale, their product and they can take it into the market. There are some practices in Nepal also, but it's really, really difficult to compete with the, modernized, industrialized good, which became a little expensive. With, despite these different kind of challenges, we need to differentiate first. We need to cater the group of people at first. What kind of skill do they need? First thing, do they need or not? Many trainings were imposed in Nepal, right? And they got short. There are 380 short-term training courses, right? And almost all youth in the rural areas had a kind of certain training, but they still remain unemployed. So what might be the reason, right? So there are different angle to look at, the skills in rural areas and urban areas in the one hand. On the other hand, we are talking about the sustainable development goals, and we try to create green jobs with green skills, with green entrepreneurships, right? So, for the sustaining environment, economy, and society. So combining these three different kind of pillars, we need to define certain skills specifically in the particular context. And on the other hand, the rapid urbanization has engrossed so many rural value system, like farming, like goat farming or farming, right? And fisheries kind of things. They are gradually degrading. Nearly 5 years ago, Nepal was independent in fisheries, but at present, we started importing it from India. So it means that people started going to the on-skill level migration to Qatar to make a stadium for World Cup, right? And our land is abandoned. That kind of skill is not only enough. So conscientization, that critical thinking, like, engaging with, creativity also matters to differentiate, to cater the need of the training or even the skills in the present context of Nepal.
Great, thank you very much. Akriti, you studied maths and computer science, I understand, but you're now working in public policy and writing, typically associated with liberal arts subjects. Are the skills that you learned through your education, your higher education, relevant to what you're doing? How does this affect your work?
Firstly, I think your question takes me back to all job interviews ever. I think for anyone who's ever shifted careers from their college majors, they're always faced with, you studied this, why are you coming into this field now? And I think I took up maths and computers in my college as majors because these were subjects that interested me in my school years. And while I was obviously still a textbook text worm and like a bookworm in school, I thought that there would be a lot more that I would get to learn at university level, because in school, I didn't really know what the method of teaching would be in university. And I expected it to be different. However, upon starting education at college, I realized that it's the same textbook-centric approach, a lot of dated ideas and a lot of dated information that was being fed to us. And as the Honorable Minister of Education mentioned, that they have, in their plan, they have incorporated the fact that colleges and institutes would be tying up with industries to keep that information, keep the knowledge updated. That's something I felt was lacking for when after I graduated and after I saw what the job requirements were for role serving. However, after school in university, I also sort of did that extra mile and went that extra mile and engaged myself in extracurriculars. And through that, I sort of got engaged in social entrepreneurial activities, which sort of instilled in me a lot more passion for what I wanted to do in life, as well as a lot of skills. Something as simple as being able to talk, like public speaking, or being able to engage with stakeholders, being able to deal with basic finances, or know basics of how to start a business. Things like these were never taught to us. Like, I think Suresh mentioned sin theta by cos theta, things like that, they were taught to us. And then after that, how do we apply it in real life? We were sort of blank. So due to my extracurriculars, I sort of ventured into the social impact sector. And that gauged my interest a lot more than coding and mathematics theorems, which didn't appeal to me as much anymore. So my interest shifted. And as I researched more into the social impact sector and how I wanted to do what I want to do, I came across public policy. And one of the reasons that I'm here on this panel and talking about my education and what I want to change in it. And that's one of the reasons that sparked my interest in the field of education policy. So whatever little changes and whatever little perspective I can offer from how the trend has been in the past 2 decades in the school and university education system, I think that we can bring in a fresh perspective of the minor changes that we can bring about and the skills that we might need when we enter. I would say the real world. It doesn't have to be the job force, because you don't necessarily have to go into jobs after your graduation. So I think I had different expectations, but I'm kind of happy with how it all turned out. But I did have to go the extra mile, and I don't think every student should have to. Those skills should be incorporated within the curriculum that one is signing up for, so that like they have the time to live a balanced life and don't have to take unnecessary stress and extra pressure. I think that's my sort of 2 cents on that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really valuable insight. Honorable Minister, back to the question which you were touching upon at the end of your previous answer. Some governments have been introducing apprentice schemes, vocational schemes. We heard from our keynote speaker about what's happening between Germany and Nepal on this. What's your view on this? Can it be effective?
Yeah, of course, in the case of Germany, of course, as I experienced a few years ago in Frankfurt, of course, they had the system in place even at that time. But in our case, of course, we have to transform. So we started with reforms, but after attending the Education Ministers Conference in Paris, organized by UNESCO, so they are pressing for transformation of education, especially after COVID-19 pandemic. So then what we are going to do is to convert reform to a transformation. So it's a Herculean job, because we are practicing some system. So we have to transform this to another field. It's a completely it will be a paradigm shift, of course. So now so I can remember that you posed a question, then skills, how we are going to improve that. That is, of course, now we are in the process of reforming curriculum, develop curriculums. So then we want to include the soft skills, the general education. So as you said, of course, if you improve the soft skills, our kids up to O levels, so then of course they from grade 1, they will be rich in skills after 11 years. So then as you said, of course, critical thinking, problem solving, all these are in the agenda. But the issue is, as I said earlier, we have to change the mindset of the teachers, teacher educators, and the general public. That's another one, because always if we try to change a system or transform, so there is a natural resistance. So keeping that in mind, of course, now I had a awareness program, first of all, among our parliamentarians. I had discussions with, they represent several political parties, ruling party or the opposition. Actually, I am very happy that at least 65-70% parliamentarians attended the provincial wise in parliament within last few days. So then I outlined the general education reforms, and then the particularly the administrative reforms. So what I want to do is to prioritize administrative reforms. Without the structure in place, you can't go ahead with this type of a transformation of education. So then the entrepreneurship, so you talk about entrepreneurship, of course, then we have introduced entrepreneurship as an optional subject for GC O level. So at the moment we have 6 core subjects and 3 optional subjects, but from next year the IT also will be a core subject. So then there will be 7 core subjects and 2 optionals. So among 2 options they can select entrepreneurship, or even the science, arts, commerce or technological streams, they can select as one. And the other thing is, if you're matching this curriculum development to our system, the Sri Lankans, of course, then you find in the state sector, over 350,000 families are engaged with tea plantation. But I think almost all the students who are studying up to GC advanced level in state sector, they know nothing about tea industry. So there will be one of the optional subjects they can select as a tea industry in that particular area. So then they are taught, so tea, the plantation, then the tea factory. So how you are going to manufacture tea, how you add value and all that. So then as they pass out from the school, of course, they can go to a technical college and train as a tea, in the tea industry. Then the rubber estate area. So then rubber manufacturing industries are there. So then we have raw materials. So then they are taught the rubber, about the rubber industry. Then the gemming. So we are rich in gems in certain areas. So then actually the students, they know nothing about gem industry. So like that, of course, we integrate the entrepreneurship matching to that particular area. So that is one of the developments in the curriculum, and we are going to introduce module system in all the subjects from grade 1, especially from grade 6. And then we are going to introduce practical English, means activity-based oral English from grade 1 next year, the first term. So at the moment we have started training of trainers, and then they will train 13,000 grade 1 teachers within next 3 months time from January to March, because we have we extended the 3rd term up to end of March because of the COVID-19 situation in Sri Lanka. Our students, they lost about 50% of school days, in some areas 60%. So then we want to continue the syllabuses until the first quarter of the next year. So then on the other hand, of course, the now fishing. Sri Lanka is an island, but unfortunately we import canned fish. Then we spend our foreign exchange. So we want to improve that. That is also, as an industry, we have to improve. We have an ocean university. So that is also under the Ministry of Education at the moment. So then there are some industries and the entrepreneurs. So we want to have links with them. Then the Ocean University, they will have some research and then come up with their proposals. Like that, all the fields of at the moment, we are working very hard to implement all these proposals by 2024. The pilot project will be started in next year.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us about the fascinating range of initiatives. Quick reminder to the audience to please send in your questions. I've got a few more questions for the panelists. If we could keep these answers rapid fire, about a minute each, that would be great, please. Mr. Suresh, what can be done to shift the emphasis in school education from rote learning of knowledge to all-round development of skills? And how do we do it in contexts like South Asian economies where we don't have unlimited resources for this?
Yeah, actually, what I think resources and teachers training are not the first thing. The first thing is like the Honorable Minister said, the mindset, because we have a kind of system we have, and we can start from the existing system. The existing system can start with mapping the curriculum, right? At least what kind of, skills do youth need at present, after 10 years, after 15 years, how the job market will be changed. Not only the job market, but it's all about the society, how the composition of the society will evolve throughout the years. We need to trace out the history to make a plan. So in doing so, we can start with our existing system. Like we can start the stronger curriculum value chain mechanism to go to the industry from the side of the university or the colleges, right? We have a kind of frequent meetings and partnership with or collaboration with schools or university industry partnership collaborations, right? And then we need to think a slightly different way. How far do we take students only inside the classroom? Like that's the fundamental question. What we have thought and practiced, yet we can only educate people within the classroom, and that classroom is problematic. We create a kind of structure, we create hierarchies, right? And then we can't go away from the textbook, not even the curricula, right? Curricula tell something else beyond than the textbook, but we keep on sticking on the textbooks. So if we started taking our student outside of the classroom, right? It could be a project work, it could be a field trip, it could be apprenticeship, it could be a kind of work-based learning based on their labels, right? If the students in the early grade, then we can plan some kind of community visit kind of activities, so that they understand people, society, community, marketing, several other things from their surrounding. So we can start with whatever we have at present. However, that's not enough. We need to go slightly beyond. And during that time, obviously, we need to develop. We need to add our resources, our teachers, other materials. But the pathetic situation of South Asia is we mostly depend on foreign aid, right? How long should we take foreign aid to develop education for the long time? And what are the effects to overall GDP or even the economic activities of the country? That could be one very important aspect to look at while reforming or transforming educational agenda. So initially, to be very specific, we can start with existing system. We can look at our curriculum, we reflect. We means as a teacher, educator, researcher, right? We reflect on the existing curriculum. We reflect on the supports that we can provide to the teachers regarding upscaling or to identify skill gaps. We can explore from our label to have a kind of partnership, right, with university, community, right? That partnership would be helpful. We can have a very systematic models of apprenticeship. For example, if someone gets joined in Kathmandu University, right, as an official of Kathmandu University, I must be very clear, look at these are your working areas after or during the semester or the course. You are supposed to work in these things. So planning and its execution is very, very important to make it more alive. Otherwise, education is almost dead. Thank you. Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you for those very specific suggestions. Honorable Minister, you've talked about a series of initiatives that you're taking with government. But I wonder, in a free market, education tends to respond to supply and demand. If the government were to take a different approach and actually take a minimalist approach, step back as much as possible, deregulate the sector and let educational institutions and exam boards and whatever do things their own way, do you think that might lead to education better equipping students for the workplace?
Well, in the field of general education, of course, it is the responsibility of the government to see that the general education, of course, and we must have a control and regulate. And then here in Sri Lanka, you find over 300 international schools registered under company law. So then very soon we are going to, because at the request of International Schools Association, so we are going to introduce a regulator that is to assure the quality assurance and the accreditation. And even for the higher education institutions, the universities and other institutions, of course, at the budget speech a few weeks ago, the president said that we are going to set up quality assurance and accreditation commission above all to maintain the quality and the accreditation. So I think we have to do a lot of things, but fortunately in Sri Lanka, of course, you find many resource persons like Minda and then fairly matured people in the university academics, the professionals. Of course, we have enough resource persons. So I am getting the support from all the corners. Even today is a holiday in Sri Lanka, it's a poet day, but still I am working. Now it's 6:15. Still I am working as a minister, but my officials also, some of them are working here. And just about 3:30, 4 o'clock, I met Engineers Association. So that is because I want to improve the introduction of STEM education from grade 6 and 10. So then I need the support from engineers, the medical doctors and all that. So therefore, they all are rallying round. This is the time that economically, you all know that we have to improve a lot in the field of economics. But my personal position is, unfortunately, the economists, they didn't get the support from, they didn't ask the assistance from scientists, professionals and technologies. Without science and technology, economists alone can't improve the economy. This is what has happened in Sri Lanka. So I am trying my level best to get down all the scientists, technologists and the professionals at one forum and then advise the economists. This is how you can do it. Now, in Sri Lanka, I think Heminda knows very well. Now, see, ilmenite, right? We export at least nearly 100,000 tons of ilmenite as it is. If we add value here, also then we can add value to 1 to 15,000. So we can easily get some foreign exchange by adding value. So in the quartz, right? We export as it is. And the graphite, the world best graphite we produce here in Sri Lanka. But we export as it is. We never add value. So we have done research, and then the Srintech, I think, Heminda knows very well that they have done research. Then the cinnamon, right? Then nano fertilizer. So we have done a lot, but unfortunately, there was nobody to carry it forward. But now I am there, I think, with the support of all our scientists, professionals and all that. So I'll try my level best to not only improve the field of education in all three sectors, but get the support from scientists, technologists and professionals. That is how Sri Lanka can come out of this economic issue. So
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I'd now like to take a selection of questions that the audience have put in. I'll start with one which I'll direct to Akriti. The question is just, what about entrepreneurship? But I think what we're getting at is, can entrepreneurship be taught? Is it a skill that should be taught in schools and universities?
I think to a point, yes. And I'm just gonna cite an example from the Delhi's government school. They'd started this entrepreneurship mindset curriculum. I'm not sure when, but because these are government schools and this was an initiative taken. And of course, government school turnout and learning outcomes are comparatively lower when you look at private schools. But the idea of introducing such a curriculum at least does not force students to sort of follow a single, mindset, like, because a lot of times I feel individuality and creativity is curbed when you look at textbook approach and simply like rote learning and giving exams and as assessments and end goals. So I think entrepreneurship can be taught with like certain skills in school and college at both levels. Because for me, I learned it in college as an extracurricular. But if in a way that the Delhi government has done, if it becomes part of your curriculum, it depends on the student, because entrepreneurship is a really wide term, right? Like you can learn n number of skills under it. So whatever sort of piques your interest, you can sort of have more, I think, a better platform to explore yourself and explore your potential. I think that would be a great way to introduce it in both school, at least like high school, 11, 12 grade and undergrad levels, in my opinion.
Great, thank you, Akriti. Suresh, there are questions here about the fact that we've spoken today about sort of current skills that are needed in the workplace and skills gaps. But what about future skills? What can be done to ensure that we're ready for a changing world, for the rise of artificial intelligence and technology and future ready skills?
Yeah, actually, this is a researchable question, right? What are the future skills, in what context, and how can we, incorporate in the existing school system? This is a very good question. Thank you very much. I do not have an answer.
Okay, Honorable Minister, would you like to answer this question, maybe?
Actually, here in Sri Lanka, you find so many startups. Then not like those days, of course, the younger generation, they are looking for opportunities. So there are opportunities, but the issue is that we have to guide them on the one hand. So there's a institution called NIA here, earlier Kosti, headed by Professor Ajit Tallis, I think Aminda knows very well. So he's the chairman of the NIA. So then that institution is to, now there's one hand you find research and innovations. On the other hand, you find entrepreneurs or the people who can invest, the business people and all that. So we didn't have a place to match or the meet these two sectors, right? So the duty of that institution is to get in together the innovators, the researchers, one hand, and on the other hand, the investors. So then that is how you can. I have seen in Japan and even in United States, for each and every state, they have an institution like that, of course. So their duty is to match these two sectors. So then, of course, then the researchers, then the innovators, so they don't have investments or the funds. On the other hand, there are investors, they have funds, but they don't know much about innovations. So then now we have started this institution to match these two sectors. So that is how we are going to work in the future.
Great, thank you so much. Hemant, some alternatives to traditional university courses are emerging. So for example, instead of doing a 3-year course on computer science, you could do a 6-month course on coding that prepares you to get a good job in coding. What do you think of this as a possible future alternative?
Yeah, I think that's even in my alma mater at University of Monaco, also we just started sometime back a course for like 6 months course. Already about 100,000 already joined in that particular program. So I think this is very important. I think I will cover some of the questions asked on entrepreneurship as well. So I think if you look at, I'll give one example, say metaverse, right? Metaverse is talking about a $3 trillion industry in say 5 to 6 years time, or maybe 10 years time. And in a typical metaverse situation, what we see is that, maybe I'm watching, say, FIFA World Cup in Qatar, right? I'm in Sri Lanka, somebody is in India, another person in the UK, but you can, as friends, you can watch that from far away place. So in that kind of scenario, if you are a metaverse engineer who are developing something, just your engineering skills won't do. Maybe you have to be an artist to develop this same scenario, listen to the music, whatever the bands are playing in the entire thing. So we are looking at a culmination of different skills that need to be, I mean, just you having a software coding skill won't help. You need to have the artistic knowledge, you have to have the music skills. So you have to bring all these people in together. So looking at the same question that you asked, maybe someone who is already an artist or a musician, if we can teach them a little bit of coding or a little bit of maybe software side, we can create a super, entrepreneur or a super, developer in the metaverse. So I think these are the things that we have to look at, because what is the future is all the culmination of different technologies. Gone are the ways there are boundaries, like, chemistry or physics, we can't call it, there's no boundaries now. So chemistry has a relationship with maybe biology has a relationship with physics. So I think that we have to understand, and also even the other artistic subjects as well. There's music, comes with technology, art comes with maybe physics. So I think that's the future that we have to be ready with.
Great. That's a really valuable insight for us. Honorable Mr. Sushil Premajayanta, Ms. Akriti Parashar, Mr. Hemant Jayavira, and Mr. Suresh Gautam. Thank you all very, very much for your time on this panel. It's been a very interesting set of insights indeed. I've certainly learned a huge amount, and I'm sure the audience has too. Thank you very, very much. It's now my pleasure to hand over to Dr. Carsten Klein, the head of Freak Marmin Foundation South Asia, for his concluding remarks. Just to briefly introduce Dr. Klein, he's always had a professional career with an international dimension, working with the German Armed Forces during the Foreign and Security Policy section of the parliamentary group of the Free Democratic Party in the Bundestag, which is the German parliament. Followed by managing the FDP's parliamentary groups in 2 state assemblies. He was also managing the department responsible for the international business of the Federal Employment Agency, the Central Placement Officer for Foreigners and Specialists. His wife Elizabeth and children, Frederick and Marketa, also live with him in the headquarters of the Delhi Regional Office. Dr. Klein, thank you very much. Over to you.
Yes, Mr. Gandhi, do we have a little bit, dear panelists, dear Minister, do we have a few minutes for some questions and answers?
Yes, I think the official time is supposed to finish up in the next 3 or 4 minutes. But if people have time to stay, I guess they can choose to, yes.
If I may just 1 or 2 questions, just if you like.
Please, Dr. Klein, we can extend by a few minutes.
Yes, I saw that there are several questions in the internet. My one is, do you think that pan-South Asian interaction in the field of closing this gap is relevant? Is it needed that, like here in the panel, people from different perspectives, from different countries in South Asia work together more closely in order to help closing the gap?
Dr. Klein, would you like to direct your question to any of the panelists in particular?
I like to answer that question, of course. Then, as I explained in the case of Sri Lanka, of course, now with the transformation of education starting from next year, so the total program is arranged to minimize the gap between the schools and the practical education. So then we have taken a policy decision. So then policies will be approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, and then there will be an act will be introduced in Parliament. So then with the consent of all the political parties representing in the Parliament at the moment, because as a leader of the House, of course, at the moment, I have spoken to them individually. So they are all in one voice that we should reform or transform the education. And the main objective is to reduce the gap between schools and the practical education.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. I could only say from a German perspective that the transition from school to work is really extremely crucial in the life of every young person. And again, from our perspective, I think that the key stakeholders, and that it was also reflected by this discussion, students, parents, teachers, universities, authorities, policymakers, and companies need to work together in order to really help in all of our countries to close that gap, because I think it is there and it is also a global phenomenon. And I think also, and be convinced that in addition to a very good, profound school education, two aspects from a school perspective are extremely relevant. That is, first of all, to give students the possibility to get a clear career and study orientation before they make their final decisions, and to also give them the possibilities also during their school career to do internships. Because by having the opportunity to be in an internship, you have the possibility to learn about the real life of the professional background. And that is, I think, really a very, very focal point. But I also think, as Honorable Minister has very well reflected, that we need a holistic picture. And that, of course, also means that it is or might be very interesting that we have an exchange in a South Asian context in order to learn and to exchange positions, models, and different experience on these particular fields. Anyway, Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom in South Asia is always strongly supporting the individual and equal access to education possibilities. And I think it is good, like this discussion has reflected, to always raise a awareness within the South Asian and neighboring countries. So thank you very much again to all of you, the panelists and the dear moderator, for your very valued insights and your participation, even on that holiday in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, Mrs. Juncken, for bringing in this very practical point of view, a very interesting, promising project. Dear Mrs. Parashar, Mr. Jayamira, and Dr. Gautam, thank you very much also for your excellent contributions to this real Pan-Asian discussion. Allow me to also say a particular thanks to our partner organization, dear Mrs. Lakshmi Goyal and CCS. Actually, as you have said and highlighted in parts of your discussion, we also, in the cooperation with CCS, do a lot in order to train the trainers. We have got here a very relevant program with CCS to train especially teachers in terms of digital future. Thank you very much, Mrs. Hasija and the team from Friedrich Naumann Foundation, Mrs. Mishra and Mr. Paljar, for preparing this excellent discussion. Esteemed audience, thank you very much for your time. If you like, check on both social media of Friedrich Naumann Foundation and of CCS and the organizations of our dear panelists. I think you will find there some very valuable further information. Thanks a lot. Have a very, very nice evening. Stay safe and healthy. A good evening again from New Delhi, especially to Sri Lanka, Nepal, and India. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.